let's move on to a team that's actually out of the playoffs, the Edmonton Oilers, who their fans, I guess, I think we already talked about it on Thursday, but welcome to the club of 4-1 leads. And I really like to follow up with that. It's just an embarrassing performance from the team as a whole. And there's only so much McDavid and Draisaitl can do. They all season, their hot streak near the end kind of masked the looming kind of deficiencies that this team has. And this isn't basketball. Your star players can't drastically change the outcome of a game or a series, and you need a lot more contribution from guys 3 through 12 in your forward core, and obviously some contribution from the defensemen as well. But I think the biggest thing that needs to be addressed for the Oilers in the offseason is the goaltending, because an article came out today where GM Ken Holland said that he was very interested in re-signing Mike Smith next season. And of course, they've still got Mikko Koskinen on the books, who is looking like a dreadful contract for them. And I don't know if either of those goalies you want to have in your tandem moving forward if you're the Edmonton Oilers. So for Oilers fans, this has got to be a really tough morning and next week as you try to recover from this series.
Yeah, too good to, at this point, to probably count on the draft helping you build the team up anymore. It's what I really think about this series is you just can't give away 2 games. The second, like a blown lead, it happens. You lose in overtime. Triple OT, not always going to go your way. You've got to think, like, when the game's on the knife's edge, sometimes it's going to go your way, sometimes it's not. In this case, both games didn't go your way, which you can still recover from, but not if your best players get shut out for 2 games. And those first 2 games are really what cost them the series. If game 3 and 4 had been game 1 and 2, I think they could have gone on to take back the series, maybe, if they were playing at McDavid and Draisaitl were producing at that level, and the Oilers were playing with that kind of intensity, and the games were all that tight. But yeah, when you go down 2-0, then you have to be sure. And if you give your best and it comes down to a knife's edge, then like toss a coin. And guess what? Both times it came up not in your favor, which I am a little surprised by. I thought that would be the situation where McDavid would thrive in best, but we've seen at times when the team has one objective and one goal, and that goal is to shut down Conor McDavid, and every man on the bench knows that that's exactly what they have to do, then the double teams, the constant awareness, the taking away the parts of the ice you want to take away, it can work. So as dangerous as he is, like, every person on the Winnipeg Jets knows where he is on the ice at all times. And like you're saying, other guys are going to have to step up there. And that's something we didn't see much of all season and didn't see it all in the playoffs, I guess. So you've got to think free agency, there's going to be some interest from a lot of players to play on a team like this that just needs a bit of tweaking, but it's going to have to be the right contracts, the right kind of players, the right kind of veteran experience. I'm thinking kind of like rejuvenation contracts, the way the Leafs like got Mason Raymond on like a 1-year, $1 million and use money. They're going to have to like roll the dice on that a little and hope to find some value, especially if they're already in contract trouble.
Yeah, they'll have a lot of cap space coming off the books for this next season, and it's one thing to get the guy that maybe you put on that line with McDavid and Leon, or you put alongside one of them if you decide to split them up. But if you are a third or fourth line guy and you know you're not playing with McDavid, then it's no, I want to make as much money as I can in free agency, and I don't want to live in Edmonton. So they're going to have to all free agency, you overpay on value. That's just the way it goes. It's a bidding war for most players. So you have that. And then you're also paying a Canadian team / Edmonton tax on top of that. So it is going to be difficult. It's too late for the draft. By the time they build through the draft, McDavid is going to be nearing the end of his prime. And yeah, I guess what I would say to you now, a fun little exercise is, do you think McDavid is an Oiler for all of the next 10 years?
I haven't listened to enough interviews with him. I think I just think I do think of him as, I don't know, of that breed, like of that kind of guy who does the right thing, whatever that is. And you look at what the culture has been for the type of player he is, and it has been to stand by and stick with your team. But of those players, like you think Crosby, Ovechkin, Stamkos, McKinnon, like they've all had more success than he has at this point, and probably earlier. I mean, Crosby and Stamkos getting to the cup like within the first like 3-4 years of their contracts. Maybe I'm a bit off there on Stamkos. McKinnon on the Avalanche, considered potentially the best team right now. So he's got the model cut out for him, but he's not quite in the same shoes. I want to hear your answer. Then I've got a different question for you.
Yeah, my gut reaction is he is a guy who wants to stay in Edmonton, and he's a pretty low-key guy who's just going to work and not complain. But as the era changes and you see the player empowerment in the NBA and the NFL, he is too special of a player for it to go to waste. And so I think you could see 7-8 years from now, if nothing has happened yet for this team, he has to look elsewhere, because it's just it can't. The amount of number one picks and draft capital that this team has had and the time they've had to build, and the fact that you swing and you get this once in a generation player plus Leon Draisaitl, it has to be the next 3 years is you go all in and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the Pittsburgh Penguins in particular right now as a team. Like, they get Sidney Crosby, they get Evgeny Malkin, they get Chris Letang, they get Marc-Andre Fleury. There's your core. You're not making it back into the top 10 of the draft, most likely. How do you continue to add talent and stay successful? Guys like, I mean, back in our day, it was Kunitz and Dupuis playing along Crosby. Guys like Rust, guys like Gensel, Sheary. You find those guys who gel and click well. Matt Murray was a stroke of good fortune. There aren't really a couple good free agent signings here and there, like veteran guys like Hainsey. Daly was on there for some time. So how do the Edmonton Oilers measure up against that? I mean, defensemen, I don't think they're that bad off. They've had to play this whole season without Clefbaum. He'll be back. Nurse has had a bit of a breakout season. So I feel like it comes down to goaltending, and then, yeah, like finding the Rusts and the Shearys, the Dupuis, the Kunitz, someone who you can pay not very much money to, like, with 100% like chemistry perfection with McDavid and Draisaitl as well, if you're going to go with that. And then, yeah, hopefully you have the cap space to incentivize Edmonton.
So where's the question?
I was working my way through it, but like, would you agree with that analysis? Like, what do you think Pittsburgh has done after getting this beautiful like draft blessing? And how can the Edmonton Oilers replicate it?
Yeah, you definitely draw parallels there, right? And that initial Pittsburgh team that won the cup was solid. And the goaltending was a big part of it, right? And I think if you're Edmonton, That's got to be the first look. And you're stuck right now with Koskinen's contract. And if your GM is set on re-signing Mike Smith, that is warning signs, danger bells, alarm, whatever you want to call it. It's going off. It's ringing. They have to look. I don't know where they can find it, but goaltending has got to be priority number one. And then after that, you're right. It's those guys in those third, fourth lines. Like they managed to swing and create that HBK line. Phil Kessel probably should have won the Conn Smythe one of those years that they won back to back. And it's going in and looking at teams like Buffalo, and because this is something Boston has done so well. And it's going and looking at teams used to be the Florida Panthers, used to be the Toronto Maple Leafs, not anymore, but you got to find these teams. Maybe it's Vancouver, even if they might not do business with you. Maybe it's Vancouver. It's Buffalo for sure. New Jersey, Anaheim, kind of those teams near the bottom of the barrel that are not set on when their window is yet. And maybe they're making some poor decisions and that's why they're having poor performance. And you're trying to find guys from there who are playing underneath the value of, or playing like below their pay grade and can provide you with some value. And that's what Vegas did so well, is they found a bunch of those diamonds in the rough. And that's something that Edmonton's got to do. But again, bad timing for them because that's what Seattle's coming in this offseason and is going to be looking to do. So they've got a ton of competition because that's what every contender is looking for. So it's so interesting to see what they're going to do next, but there has to be some changes. There just has to, and you have to start whipping out the draft capital. Doesn't really matter anymore. It's got to be, this is our token to pick up guys who are actually going to help the team win now.